This is Stan Fischler, and this is the Power Play Break, the place to talk about pucks.
Hey, it's Chris Riley back here in the Power Play Break with Rick Peckham. Rick, let's talk about now, you graduate high school and you decide to go to Kent State, the Golden Flashes. What prompted you to want to go there?
Well, Mike Forens, the older student at high school, had gone there, and as I was learning more about broadcasting and trying to follow that as a career, I thought, you know, geez, here's a guy who's already there. You know, it might help in terms of some openings. It sounds like they've got a great broadcasting school. I really didn't have any particular preferences as far as other schools. It was going to be somewhere in Ohio where I would go, and so I decided to go up to Kent State, and it was a great experience there in terms of developing as a broadcaster. They have a great radio, TV, telecommunications program, and they always have. Paul Staggerwald.
Yes,
was one of the
Staggy.
guys that, yeah.
Was he a classmate
right
of yours? Or?
He was. He's, tell him, but he was a couple years older than me. But no, I think he was a year older than me. We used to do games together, and Forens and I and Staggy ended up all making the NHL. But we got great experience with the club hockey team. Steve Albert founded that team.
Yes.
In 1970. And it was the Kent State Clippers, because we had to have another name because we weren't a varsity sport. Eventually it would become varsity for a brief time, but it was the Clippers throughout that entire era. And we had a cable TV deal in 1973. Portage Telerama was the cable company. I mean, we had a tremendous setup for the time.
College level, especially.
Yeah,
high school level, now college level, it's really looking wonderful.
And for the early 70s, great experience, TV, radio, and obviously doing other sports with football and basketball at that time as well. So that was a great experience. Later in my years there, the California Golden Seals moved to Cleveland, became the Cleveland Barons for a couple of years. And they trained at Kent State, at the Kent State Ice Arena, and I got to know Ron McGrath, I remember was the name of the PR director of the Barons, and he invited me anytime to come up to a Barons home game, had full press credentials, and just the fact that I could go up there and eat that free press meal was, as a college kid.
Now they charge you for it. It's unfortunate.
Yeah, exactly. It was
back
a little
then it was
tough.
free.
But I was closer to the Richfield Coliseum than most of the fans in Cleveland were. I was out in the middle of nowhere south of Cleveland, and Kent, Ohio is not far from there. So great experience. I'd go in there and interview, I remember Jerry Cheevers. I'd go on to work with him for 9 years, and I'd interview him after a game. Or Phil Esposito got on my resume reel.
Yeah.
And just people around the NHL and practicing NHL hockey, just a tremendous experience. I just couldn't trade any of that for anything else.
Now you're in there and you're really honing your craft at that time, to become a sportscaster. Were you sending out tapes to ask advice of different people at that point in your career? I know a lot of guys I went to school with would always send a tape out to somebody and say to the announcer, when you have a moment, please listen and critique this for me. Were you trying that at all? Or?
Not too much, Chris. I was kind of shy at that point. So it was really tough to get out there and sell myself. I really found that to be difficult. I'd get the tape together and I'd get it out and follow up on it, but it wasn't something where I really pushed, in trying to talk to a lot of people, get critiques and feedback and so forth on how I was doing. It probably was a little slow on the trigger in terms of getting that going, but it all worked out, but that's just what was my personality at that point.
Any stars, anybody from the school that were there when you were doing basketball or anything else who came out of there for other sports?
Well,
any notables?
My first year, actually they had just reached the Tangerine Bowl the year before with Nick Saban, Gary Pinkel, Jack Lambert,
oh, wow.
Abdul Salam, who went on to a long career with the Jets, players like that. In fact, I think he and a few others from that team hung around. They had just reached the Tangerine Bowl, and until last year, Kent State had not had another bowl-worthy team. So football, really not too many stars coming out of there outside of that group. Basketball-wise, not too much going on there.
Did you get to know Nick Saban while he was there at all? Or?
No, in fact, that was his senior year. So by the time I got there, he was out. He was gone and on his way.
Was it a great training ground to learn mistakes at college level? I mean,
yeah.
I mean, that's something that like a lot of guys today try to be perfect off the hop, and you always want to try to, better yourself, but it's okay to make the mistake. I mean, that's a big thing to learn from.
Yeah, it's just, as young aspiring broadcasters will ask the question, what do I need to do? You need to get behind a microphone and announce and develop your own style. And the more you do it, the more comfortable you are, the smoother you become, the less likely you are to find yourself in those situations. And it's just a matter of, broadcasting's very unique in that it's not so much what do you know out of a book, it's what do you know when the light goes on, and how can you perform, and what have you learned in terms of techniques that way. It's very much a performance major for college students, not so much, you've got to memorize broadcast law or something like that. So, I just found that the more experience I got, and later on I was able to work at the town radio station and be the afternoon news editor, as that was my title. I didn't really do a whole lot of editing. It was just rip and read, basically.
Yeah.
But
don't read this, cut this. And
yeah,
go.
for all the big doings in downtown Kent, Ohio, a town of about 10,000, there was a lot going on. But no, it was a lot of fun, and you just couldn't trade that kind of experience. That's what that whole thing was all about.
When we get back, we'll talk about Rick's move to the Amherst with the Rochester Americans.